Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our MasterControl hosted webinar. It's titled The Rise of Intelligent Quality, Shifting to Flexible and Dynamic Processes. Our speakers today are Alan Renter, he's our Vice President of Engineering, and Chris Woodhead, who is our Director of Global Implementation. Both of them have some excellent points that they're going to be sharing with you today. Before we get started, let me just go through a couple housekeeping items. First off, if you have any technical difficulties during the presentation today, simply use the chat function. There's a chat icon at the bottom of your screen. Just send us a message and somebody on our end will work to get your issue resolved as quickly as possible. Secondly, you are welcome to ask questions at any time during the presentation. We will be addressing those at the end. Use the Q&A icon that's also at the bottom of your screen. Just submit your questions there. We'll get to as many as we can at the end of the presentation. So with that, I'll turn it over to Alan.
Thanks, Jen. Really exciting to be here today and to go through a few items that we think are very important to those in the quality space. We're going to really spend some time and focus on the value of platforms and the value of having highly integrated systems associated with our quality platforms and the benefit that we get from those things. Also, we want to briefly touch on and spend a little bit of focus and time talking about some of the challenges we've had during the pandemic and how these highly connected systems have helped us meet those challenges. Before we do that, I'd really like to introduce myself. I'm Alan Renter, Vice President of Engineering here at MasterControl. Spent a few decades in the industry working and managing and leading high-performing engineering teams. Have significant amount of experience in the life sciences and quality spaces associated with these highly connected systems. With that, Chris Woodhead will be describing the things he does for us today too.
Hello, it's a pleasure to be here with you today. Yes, my name is Chris Woodhead. I'm the Director of Global Implementation here at MasterControl. My previous career was in the life science industry, specifically in quality systems management. And I moved from that into MasterControl about 4 years ago when I started to work on deploying MasterControl at client sites. I have moved from that into a management position overseeing the MasterControl professional services consultants in Europe and the US, and they are now delivering MasterControl to our customers.
Thanks, Chris. So our three takeaways from our discussion today are associated with force multiplication and what that means from a platform perspective. We're also going to talk through the importance of having highly connected, tightly integrated systems. The perils of disconnected systems. This is something that I am very passionate about and I have a lot of energy about. The days of having a series of non-integrated systems, a point solution here in your clinical space, another point solution over here that manages your quality, and then this document management system over here, those days are gone. The companies that are spending their time and energy focusing on those things are not super efficient. Our platform helps you solve that problem. The quality landscape is in fact changing right now, Jen. It's really stark when we think about this. The days of point solutions that are non-integrated are over. The future of quality is really about interconnected systems and users and companies having full access and full control of their data so they can make decisions with it and they can integrate that into their work process. That agility and flexibility is absolutely key right now. To talk to us a little bit more about that, we will pivot over to Chris.
So with the spread of coronavirus, businesses were forced to modify processes within days or weeks, many invoking their business continuity planning to respond to the disruptive events. But business continuity plans are only as good as they are tested. Minimum service levels and maximum tolerable periods of disruption are situational and difficult to assess across an organization's operations. Flexibility is critical. While managing remote, socially distant workforces, organizations needed to adapt to disruptions in supply chain, manufacturing, distribution, and support, and maintain regulatory compliance while in crisis mode. Having business-critical systems carry the burden of connecting key personnel, administering standardized quality processes, and ensuring compliance for record management allows organizations to focus resources on finding solutions for the unexpected.
Flexibility is key here, and there's always been some impediments or reasons why organizations have shied away from the cloud. 4 or 5 years ago, the thing that we heard organizations talking about as it pertains to cloud migration was concern over risk, concern over security, control of an organization's data and having quick access to one's data. With the cost and the overhead of running an information security organization and being focused on all of the things that come with hosting and keeping track of your own data on your own hardware and your own data center, those days have kind of passed. The expense and the expertise needed to execute on those things is significant. In fact, almost unattainable nowadays for most organizations, given the sophistication of the threats that are out there. Nowadays, moving to the cloud is viewed as a way to get better security. It's really interesting to see cloud adoption and how that's gone forward as a way to reduce risk. Finally, why would an organization have as their critical focus information and data security? It's just not something that an organization would do. The solution here is quite interesting. I want to briefly talk through an experience I've had in the life sciences. I worked for a life sciences company as the individual who ran their IT and strategic technology division. We had individual solutions, point solutions for different things that we were doing there associated with quality. We had a homegrown, custom-built solution that managed our clinical activities. We had a MasterControl solution that managed our documentation, and we had another point system that helped us track our training. Because those systems were disparate and they were not connected, we had to go and custom build all those integrations, and we had to employ, it's sometimes 3 people to make sure that those records all transferred correctly and were updating in the correct system. And then in some cases, we had people off in a warehouse looking for paper to go do data retrieval and find trends over time, and that kind of disconnected environment just was not super efficient.
Well, and I think in those situations, Alan, when you're having to go backtrack and find data, how do you know if you really found it all? Like, then you also immediately bring in an integrity problem.
You have a big integrity problem, and to be completely frank, most of the time we went and looked for that needle in the proverbial haystack in the paper. We rarely found it, and if we did find it, it was never congruent data. It was always bits and pieces. Well, we think this is where we were at about that time, and this is what we think was happening, and we have this folder but not this folder, and Frank, who used to work here, no longer works here, and it was never congruent, I guess is the way that I would say that. And that really raises the question, well, what's the solution? The solution is a fully integrated platform. That's what the solution is.
Yeah. Systems that talk to each other.
That's right.
So the way I always like to say it is, if I have to input data, I should only have to input it once. If it needs to be used in multiple different places, it should be able to travel to those places automatically.
That's correct. And all those concerns about data quality and data congruity and, well, did we get the data transferred correctly? All that goes away. You have a single data repository and a single place where you can go and retrieve your information. And it's a real important aspect of a platform.
Yeah.
Other common quality pain points that we hear about that a lot of our customers experience and that we see in the industry, it's really what we've been hinting at. It's siloed information and data. It's individual systems containing all of their own stuff. It's these disparate and disconnected processes where you kick something off here in your clinical system, and then you have to transition and move over to your document management system, and then once again, off we go to yet another system for some other component of your enterprise process. That's a big pain point. Another one are these inefficiencies. Some of these disparate systems have overlap. Well, what percentage of which process are we doing in which system, right? When you don't have a platform, that becomes a pretty fundamental problem. The biggest of which is another one that we've been alluding to over our discussion today, and that's just poor communication. And it's not just the interchange of data. It's different people owning different systems. It's different people understanding and knowing which is the source of truth, which is the real authoritative source for which piece of information. It's a real problem. And I think, Chris, you have some information on this for us, don't you?
Yes. We all recognize that standardized business-critical applications reduce the training burden and ensure processes are consistent, therefore less vulnerable to unexpected disruption. Standardization also simplifies change management when an organization needs to adjust to a changing business environment. But let's not get ahead of ourselves here. The FDA Office of Regulatory Affairs for inspection observations in 2019 continues to show lack of adequate processes and procedures and record management as the overwhelming source of 483s. Why is that? Because it reflects the lowest common denominator for any deficiency identified in the quality system. It reflects the reality that disconnected processes, often using inconsistent siloed data sources, creates an environment that is predisposed for compliance issues. Disconnected processes are challenging to measure and reconcile. Inconsistent field labels and value lists, varying date formats, and doubts on time zones create uncertainties when collating information across multiple platforms, requiring investment in resources to cleanse data when reviewing performance indicators and during management review. When we think about poor communication, the question becomes, have communication practices been updated to reflect modern working environments? Do we continue to be reliant on meetings and office discussions to communicate, or have performance indicators matured to be visualizations of process performance available in real time, allowing resources on various continents with different needs access to the data they need when they need it? By streamlining the process inputs and outputs within the same application, employees can be trained and processes can be deployed and scaled dynamically without the complexity of managing multiple solutions. This allows organizations to use resources across facilities, regionally or globally, to manage the processes that were previously siloed. Beyond that, once a process is defined and measurable, it can be optimized. When the inputs and outputs of each process exist within the same framework, overall operational efficiencies are realized not only within each process, but in the transfer between processes. In an environment where compliance is designed into the process, where the documented procedure is traceable to an automated workflow, the application monitors and applies controls based on training status, and the records requirements are established and enforced by the process itself. Audit readiness becomes a quantitative assessment of process adherence that is visible in real time.
Thanks, Chris. Let's talk for a minute about the potential of platforms. Let's go a little deeper and look at what is a platform from a technical perspective. A platform is an ecosystem or grouping of interrelated or integrated tools. It's also important to note that these integrated tools share data and provide process unification across the platform. And they're also typically highly configurable. That means that whatever your business process is, these tools can be configured to meet and in fact exceed your needs from a process perspective. Closely related to a platform is this idea of a force multiplier. What is a force multiplier?
Ooh, I know the answer to that question.
Tell us.
Tom Brady is a force multiplier.
Tom Brady is in fact a great sports metaphor for a force multiplier.
Alan gave a great speech at our customer summit a couple weeks ago, and he talked about, and I love football, I don't know if you know that, but I'm a huge football fan. And to me, this made so much sense. When you talked about Tom Brady, and it's not just being able to pass the ball, but it's being able to read a defense. It's being able to be a leader on the field. All those different aspects, when those come together, that's a force multiplier.
And you're unbeatable.
And you're unbeatable.
That's
there it
right.
Is.
All right. Fantastic.
But
Tom
now
Brady.
Talk to us about how that relates to a quality system.
The way that we interpret that from a quality system perspective is your system is no longer a drag on your process. It's a process enabler. It is multiplying your efforts. It's making your efforts amplified in the organization. That's what a force multiplier is from a technology or a platform perspective. I really like the way we've talked about that today so far. Chris, do you have any examples for us here that we can think about?
So digital technologies like mobile, cloud, social, and analytics have become part of an ongoing evolution in how we interact with each other, with our vendors, and with partners. Through a thorough understanding of our clients' experiences, MasterControl recognizes the key to empowering organizations is to address the regulatory and quality compliance requirements, lowering their barriers to market entry. The ability to efficiently collaborate and manage the documentation that underpins intellectual property, rapidly establishing regulatory compliance and market approval, and through managing resources efficiently through automation where possible, and empowering skilled workers to make data-driven decisions. A good example of this is the application of review by exception in the MasterControl production records module. By establishing the expected tolerances and ensuring compliance to good documentation practices by design, the review process becomes an evaluation of individual out-of-tolerance entries through review by exception. While this can seem a daunting undertaking, MasterControl Professional Services is resourced with many who have walked the path and understand the complexities of delivering solutions within regulated industry. It remains very common across all scales of industry to work with organizations where an aspect of their quality system is paper-based. That can vary from one facility's training system or a change management process that evolved outside of the corporate solution. MasterControl is often selected to provide standardized, off-the-shelf solutions to establish a centralized operating process within these environments. Applying the digital-first approach across all business entities establishes the foundational step in an organization's journey to digital maturity. This allows for overarching processes, such as risk management, to be consistently applied across the product lifecycle. A little later today, we will look at how the connected platform allows the next step into intelligent quality. So how do we get clients to this point? The first step is to work closely with organizations to establish a realistic ambition. The planning of the what, where, when, and how, and evaluating the client's success factors, along with their appetite for change. Organizations often look to scale their implementations based on their resources availability. This can range from deploying individual solutions in logical groups, such as documents and training, which are almost always deployed together, to running multiple concurrent work streams with teams working on various processes, such as documents, training, complaints, management of change, deviations, and production records. The modular approach of the MasterControl platform provides launch points across modules, allowing each sub-process to be developed independently. MasterControl Professional Services will engage scaled delivery teams that can then guide you through the implementation phases to configure, qualify, and deploy your process automation solutions. The scalability of the MasterControl platform is reflected in our client base. MasterControl solutions scale to the needs of startups that are exploring the opportunities for new and exciting technologies to some of the largest Fortune 500 companies. Implementing MasterControl as a business-critical application establishes a relationship that develops in unison with the needs of the organization. As products move from design through pre-market and into commercialization, the platform captures the critical information efficiently and accurately while providing continuity throughout the product lifecycle. As quality professionals, you have a million responsibilities, and you're always trying to connect information. Let me give you an example of how the power of combined and connected solutions within the MasterControl platform helps streamline the typical processes you might encounter. Start with a production record. If it resides in the same platform as the quality management system, as it does in MasterControl, it can interact with other quality and manufacturing processes, data, and documents. This means that a document, an SOP for example, can be made available directly to the production record. Instead of a manufacturing employee leaving the production record to refer to the procedure in a binder or other electronic system, they can link to the effective revision of that procedure right from within the production record. At the same time, the training system, which is also an integrated solution built into the platform, can verify that the manufacturing employee is trained to perform the step in the production record and block them from entering data if training is not current. The employee can click on the link within the notification to be taken to the training task, and once completed, get back to entering data in the production record. If an error or deviation occurs during manufacturing, the employee will be able to launch a quality event form directly from the production record to begin the investigation. The status of the quality event is clearly shown within the production record, eliminating the time-consuming process of filling out paper records and then attaching or documenting the quality event number in a paper production record. And finally, by using MasterControl's equipment calibration solution, the need to verify that equipment is in calibration is eliminated. When a piece of equipment is assigned to the production record, MasterControl will verify the calibration status and warn the employee if the piece of equipment's calibration has expired. All of these activities can be carried out within a single system, and with each step informing the other. At MasterControl, our primary goal is to provide an unparalleled grouping of solutions and tools that enable the entire life cycle of product quality events to be recorded, acted upon, and effectively managed. When you have a fully connected platform that is a force multiplier, you don't just have quality processes. You're also able to link quality with manufacturing, operations, and other departments. It opens a breadth of capabilities and insights beyond what you can get with individual modules that aren't integrated and systems that don't have a single source of truth for their data. We believe a platform isn't just a good idea from a technological standpoint. It's a good idea because it serves the business as a practical solution that lays a groundwork for future success. The MasterControl platform combines quality with all a company's critical yet disparate activities, including manufacturing, clinical, regulatory, suppliers, development, and post-market activities. The path to digital maturity highlights that once an integrated data platform is established, the underlying data becomes an enormously powerful source of truth for artificial intelligence, machine learning, and natural language processing. As we review quality process data, we often apply the innately human trait of looking for patterns. For example, when looking at complaint data, we may look for failure codes associated to specific batch numbers or embedded software versions. It often takes a well-structured investigation with skilled resources to further evaluate correlation with a change in manufacturing process, subassembly design, or component material. In a fully integrated platform, the data provides the proactive posture, monitoring patterns and seeking correlations between cause and effect. We can theorize on how this can be applied to build intelligent quality. This could be to recognize when a shift in a material's behavior, even within tolerances, can be traceable to a specific vendor component batch, or to identify a pattern of events that have previously resulted in an out-of-specification result, to ensure issues can be identified and corrected prior to valuable time and manufacturing capacity being used on a run that is subsequently placed on NCR.
Thanks, Chris. Really excited to talk about the promise of emerging technologies. And this is really about becoming aware of and being able to take actions based on what your data is telling you. And as we've talked about, it's critical that we have all of the data from across the platform or across the ecosystem. And now this is where we start to do the exciting things. To do that, I want to spend just a brief moment and talk about what natural language processing, NLP, and machine learning are. NLP is really all about understanding and deriving value out of what your data is telling you. NLP as a practice comes from being able to listen to language or parse big paragraphs of data and derive meaning out of that. Machine learning is when your systems start to take actions based on what it finds in the data. And that is really the secret sauce. That is really sort of the holy grail of artificial intelligence. And we're going to talk for a minute about some of the things that we're doing in that area. As you can see here, we've put a lot of energy and focus on our analytics offering. And that's what we like to call our insights. As you can see, we have a very powerful interface that allows even people with very little or no technical aptitude to quickly create dashboards, reports, swip and swap and drill in on different features that they see and really start to understand and gain those insights on the data that they see there. Really exciting and powerful set of features that we have here. Another component of these emerging technologies that we want to spend just a few minutes on and talk about is this notion of what the industry calls CI/CD. That stands for continuous integration and continuous delivery. So as an idea, what that means is we move away from the old-fashioned monolithic, big yearly or quarterly upgrades or patches that we've been used to in the industry, and we move towards this idea that we already see on consumer electronics, things like our phones. When you wake up in the morning, you may notice that one of your apps on your phone upgraded overnight. Well, with validation as a service and real-time deployments, we'll be able to, in real time, if you're ready, push you new features, bug fixes, and patches, and other improvements to the software. And we're able to meet the needs of our customers a lot faster. And this is an absolute game changer in the quality space. Another fun topic that we're working on right now in our labs organization is what we're calling our advanced quality event management. And what this is a low or no code solution. Using something like this allows us to give our customers the ability to configure their own processes, their own workflows with custom events that meet different thresholds. And with that, you can very quickly, within a matter of minutes, adapt or transition into some new form of work that you haven't done to this point. If you have, for example, some new process step in your quality practice and process that you need to accommodate, our low or no code solution will allow you to do that on the fly, test it, and then deploy it in real time. And you can do that with a minimal amount of training. This is not something that you need a computer science degree to operate. This is a true game changer. This, when we talk, Jen, about force multiplication, this is one of the things that gives us that. It's this ability to configure and customize process events on the fly. Really, really exciting about where we're headed here. The future is already here in some cases. We are doing some things right now for our customers in our advanced research projects that are going to really be game changing. This whole thing about self-healing and self-actionable systems isn't science fiction any longer. It's really here right now. Really excited to think about what this can do for our customers.
I know, like your system could launch a kappa, investigate a kappa, and close a kappa all by itself?
That's correct.
All by itself?
All by itself. Magic.
Magic. That would be, I mean, when you think about the efficiencies of the force multiplier, so when you were talking a little bit earlier about, so the first part is the data, right? So
Yep.
You don't have to go to your separate clinical system or your separate regulatory system or your separate doc system, right? And collect data and transfer it. I always call the AI and the ML the cherry on top, right? Because one, you've created all these efficiencies. Things are so much easier, but now you have data. And now you have insights. And all of the sudden, you're going to be able to make better business decisions because of it.
That's correct.
And when you speak to that, to the CEO or the leadership in your company, that type of decision-making ability goes straight to the bottom line. Those are the types of things that drive revenue improvement.
Those are truly game-changing.
Yeah. Chris, tell us your take on the future.
When we think about the path to digital maturity, this allows quality professionals to gain access to tools that are used in other industries. When we think about natural language processing, artificial intelligence, machine learning, as we get onto that path to digital maturity, we are surfacing opportunities that have never existed within the quality space before and are very applicable to making decisions based on structured data that we can maintain within the platform.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris.
All right. Well, that actually brings us if you want to click me ahead a slide, that actually brings us to our Q&A. So throughout the presentation today, as I mentioned, you could ask questions using the Q&A button icon at the bottom of your screen. If you have any questions now, please continue to ask them. We will get through as many questions as we can. If we do not get to your questions today, Alan or Chris will follow up with you individually just to make sure that we've addressed everything that you've brought to our attention. So with that, we do have a couple of questions that have come in, so I'm going to pop some questions out there and you guys can arm wrestle over who's going to answer them. But the first one is, do you recommend any strategies on how to approach management to get them to buy into the value of an integrated platform?
I'll take that one, Jen. There's a couple really easy things that we can do to help demonstrate the value of these highly integrated systems. A simple analysis of how many people that you have running down these records, collaborating between teams, between practices, a lot of that goes away. And there's a pretty easy to see return on investment when you think about it that way.
Yeah, and I think when Chris was talking about the production record and the ability to get to the end and review by exception, you know, I mentioned it as well when I said when you're talking to your CEOs or your leadership teams, I think for them it's really about business efficiency, business improvement, and return on the bottom line. And when you say I can get a product out the door 50% faster, that means you can bill for that product, collect the revenue for that product 50% faster. All of those things have a huge impact on business operations.
The point you're making about time to market can't be overlooked. That is really, really important. I think that
time is money.
There you go.
I mean, we've heard that. That's an old standard, right? We go way back. All right, let me get to our next question. How do regulatory bodies like the FDA view integrated platforms? Are there compliance's advantages to being on a platform? Chris, I think I'll let you answer this one.
Most regulatory agencies won't dictate how you become compliant. But one of the things the FDA and all regulatory agencies want to see is objective evidence that you adhere to your processes. And single platform solutions allow them to see very rapidly across all of your quality systems what your process adherence looks like. So from a compliance perspective, it streamlines auditing. It ensures organizations are proactive in understanding their compliance state. And audit preparation simply is a real-time activity of looking at how closely you are adhering to your key performance indicators and your expected process outcomes.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, well, I have another question. Given the speed of technological innovation, what other kinds of enhancements do you guys see on the future on the horizon for QMS solutions?
I'll take that one. I think that this is a wide open book to read that hasn't been written yet. But if I were to speculate, I would start to think that where artificial intelligence and NLP can take us, and then when you start to use those kinds of methodologies and technologies with higher levels of automation, per se, in manufacturing or in clinical, that just further compresses that time to market. And the efficiency starts to rise, and things that have traditionally taken many months or many years to complete these clinical trials could go much, 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 much faster. And I think the key thing to think about here is artificial intelligence, and then we start to get into the notion of manufacturing automation and telemedicine, think teleclinical. The future's bright. It's a wide open book.
Awesome. All right, we have another question here. I think we have time for one more. And I know, Alan, this is something that you're really passionate about. Does a platform of integrated solutions have to be cloud-based, or should it be on-premise? And what are the advantages of one over the other?
Fantastic question.
We talked about this just the other day. It comes down to security. Who's best at managing security 24/7?
I think that security is a real driving factor for many organizations moving to the cloud. I think that our cloud providers, the software as a service providers, of which we are one, we can provide a much higher standard of risk reduction, and we can keep up with the threats much, much better than individual companies can. So that's one piece of it. Another important factor here is this idea of maintaining your solutions and systems by yourself. you don't have to go do upgrades if your software company is doing it for you. You're not up at the middle of the night patching different systems and making sure your operating system patches are up to date and that your quality logs on your different database servers are maintained. All of that goes away. You don't have to worry about it anymore. You're paying for a service and we're giving you one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I did another webinar with one of our consultant friends from Germany about a year ago, and he talked about being on premise is the equivalent of putting money in your mattress versus putting your money in the bank, right? So you don't necessarily have control of your money like in your immediate possession, but it's much safer.
Yeah.
If it's at the bank.
That's right.
Than if it is right there.
You have things like insurance, where if the bank gets robbed or something happens that can prevent you from having a catastrophic loss there. Yeah. The exact same thing happens when you use a software as a service provider. We can go into a lot more detail here, but things like disaster recovery, business continuity, all of that's done for you. Push button. You don't worry about it. It's a service. If you want to do all that stuff on your own on premise, who has the money to go hire people to do that kind of stuff today?
Well, it goes back to our efficiency, if you want to get the true efficiencies. So to answer the question, is one have an advantage over the other? I think to get the true efficiencies of an integrated platform, you would get more benefit by being on the cloud because someone else would be managing all the other stuff.
Completely and totally agree.
Yeah. All right, well, that concludes our webinar today. I want to thank everybody out there for joining us. I especially want to thank Alan and Chris for the immense amounts of information they gave us. I hope that you all learned something today. I hope that you got some good takeaways from our webinar today. We will be following up with all of you. You will be able to download the presentation or share a recorded on-demand version of it with other people inside your company if you like. And we'll also give you some additional resources that might help you on your path to digital maturity. Thank you again, and we'll see you next time.